The hospital lights were too bright, the sheets too white. The silence, though, was the loudest thing in the room. Amira Jennings lay still, her body sore, the IV drip clicking with cold rhythm. She blinked slowly, the exhaustion crawling through every muscle, every vein. In her arms was a baby girl, wrapped tight in the hospital's pink and white blanket. A nurse had placed her there gently, moments after her first cry. Amira hadn't cried yet. Not from the pain, not from the birth, not from joy. Because joy wasn't what she felt. She looked down at the child and whispered with dry lips, "Azariah." Her daughter flinched in sleep, then settled. Amira adjusted her hold. The baby was warm, breathing softly, perfect. But the chair in the corner, the one where a husband should have sat, was still empty. The phone she had called from hours earlier, unanswered. Her fingers had dialed it while she leaned over the kitchen counter, one hand on her belly, water breaking at her feet. She had called him twice. He never picked up. 3 hours later, Amira gave birth. Alone. The city skyline shimmered with silver as Lennox adjusted his cufflinks. "Charity gala," he said, while scrolling through something on his phone. "I won't be late." Amira sat at the edge of the bed, one hand resting over her 8-month belly. "Do you want me to come with you this time?" she asked quietly. He paused, just for a moment. "You'd be uncomfortable," he said flatly. "Besides, there'll be alcohol and cameras." "Right," she whispered. He didn't hear the sadness in her voice, or he ignored it. Either way, the bedroom fell quiet again. Amira's contractions had started subtly, a tightening, then a deep pull. She thought she had time. But soon she was gripping the counter with both hands, sweat on her brow, tears burning behind her eyes. She tried to call again. No answer. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply picked up her keys, grabbed her hospital bag, and booked an Uber. By the time the nurses wheeled her into delivery, she was 6 centimeters dilated. "Is anyone coming to be with you?" they asked. She shook her head. "No." They asked if she wanted them to call someone. She whispered, "No, I'm fine." But she wasn't. Azariah stirred in her arms. Her tiny lips puckered, then relaxed. Amira leaned back against the pillow and finally let the tears fall. They came slow, tired tears, not loud ones. She wasn't crying because she had given birth. She was crying because he hadn't come, because she had once believed he would never miss something like this, because she had imagined holding his hand, seeing his tears, watching him kiss their daughter's forehead. But she had only seen his face through a phone screen, smiling beside another woman, a champagne glass raised, 3 hours after her water broke. What do you do when the person you love the most doesn't show up when it matters most? Have you ever been left alone in a moment you thought would be shared? Do you know someone who had to carry both the weight of motherhood and heartbreak at the same time? Amira didn't expect her life to look like this. She was smart, grounded, faithful. She thought love meant partnership. But that night, it only meant silence. Would you have stayed, or walked away after that first cry? Let us know in the comments. This is a story of quiet strength, second chances, and a kind of love that doesn't ask you to beg. She looked down at her daughter, brushing her cheek gently with one finger. "Don't worry, baby girl," she whispered. "I'll always show up for you." And with that vow, Amira Jennings closed the chapter of her marriage, even if her husband didn't know it yet. Because while she gave birth alone, something else was born too. A woman no longer willing to wait for love that forgets her. The first time Lennox Waverly saw Amira Jennings, she was standing at the mic in a packed ballroom in San Diego. She wasn't the loudest person in the room, but her presence pulled focus. There was something unshakably calm about her. Her voice didn't waver when she asked a question during the Q&A, and it wasn't the kind of question you could fake intelligence with. It was sharp, specific, the kind that made the panel of tech execs pause before answering. Lennox noticed. He was seated in the front row, legs crossed, one hand tapping against his jaw as he studied her. The other panelists moved on, but his eyes stayed on her longer than they should have. Later that evening, as people networked over cocktails and exchanged LinkedIn scans, he approached her. "You're the one who asked about predictive scaling models," he said, no preamble. Amira turned, a little surprised. She hadn't realized he was even in the room. "That's right," she replied. "I liked the way you framed it. You don't talk like someone stuck in the theory part of the job." She gave a small smile. "Probably because I've been buried in systems integration for 5 years. Lennox extended his hand. "Lennox." "Amira." He didn't let go immediately. Neither did she. He asked if she had time for coffee. She almost said no. Her flight back to Chicago was early the next morning. But something in his tone wasn't pushy. Just interested. Curious. They found a small cafe across the street and talked for an hour. Then 2. Then 3. They only stopped when the barista turned the chairs upside down and flicked the lights. The next day, she missed her flight. It happened fast after that. Calls turned to video chats. Video chats turned into weekend trips. She visited his offices in New York. He surprised her in Chicago. Lennox wasn't the man he appeared to be on magazine covers. At least, not with her. With her, he wasn't just the billionaire CEO or the sharp-suited speaker. He was attentive, engaged. He asked about her father, who passed when she was in college. He sent her favorite takeout on stressful days. He bought her a bracelet with her name engraved on the inside. Subtle, personal, never flashy. Amira had never dated someone like him before. He lived in a world with private airport lounges and meetings in Dubai. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment above a bakery and coded until midnight. But with him, she never felt small. Never out of place. When he proposed 9 months later in front of the skyline at Battery Park, she said yes before he even finished the question. They were married that spring in Napa Valley. Everything about it was grand. Helicopters, wine barrels engraved with their initials, a guest list. That included celebrities she'd only seen on streaming platforms. But what she remembered most was the way he looked at her when she walked down the aisle. Like he didn't care about the vineyard or the press or the executives who flew in. Like she was the only one that mattered. For a while, that's exactly how he made her feel. He wasn't perfect, but he was present. He showed up to her small wins, held her hand under tables, pulled her into his lap when meetings ran late and neither of them wanted to leave the office. She moved to New York to be with him. He said he'd make space in his world for her. And he did. At first, the first time he left without saying goodbye, it was for a last-minute board retreat. She found out from his assistant. He called the next day, said it was chaotic, promised to make it up to her. She let it go. The second time, it was during their anniversary week. A client emergency. He sent her flowers and a card that said, "Next week, I'm all yours." But next week turned into next month. She tried to stay understanding. CEOs didn't clock out at 5. She knew that. But slowly, the gap between them widened. He stopped coming home for dinner. Then he stopped calling when he was running late. The bedroom grew quieter. The space between them in bed stretched wider. He still kissed her. Forehead, some mornings. Still held her hand in public. But it started to feel more like habit than want. The change was subtle. A text left unanswered. A trip he didn't mention until he was already gone. A date night cancelled. Then another. Amira kept it to herself. Told her mother everything was fine. Told her friends he was just overwhelmed at work. Told herself it would pass. It didn't. Still, she stayed. Because love wasn't a switch you could turn off when someone disappointed you. Because she believed in working through hard seasons. Because when she looked at him, even on his most distant days, she remembered how it used to be. She wasn't naive, but she was hopeful. Until the night she told him she was pregnant. He was on his laptop in the living room, typing away. She stood across from him, her hands shaking just slightly. I'm pregnant," she said. He didn't look up right away. When he did, his face was unreadable. "That's good news," he said finally. But this isn't a good time. No congratulations, no smile. Hug. She nodded slowly, swallowing her hurt. I thought you'd be happy. I am, he said. I'm just dealing with a lot. She waited for him to stand, to cross the room and touch her belly, to ask how far along she was, but he didn't. That night, she went to bed with her back to him and her palm pressed over her stomach. Amira stared at the ceiling that night, barely blinking. Her husband's back faced her, his breathing even, as if nothing had changed, as if he hadn't heard her voice tremble, as if she hadn't just told him they were going to have a child. She pressed her palm gently over her belly. It was still flat, still early, but she knew. Life was already there, growing, depending on her. Lennox didn't ask how far along she was. He didn't mention doctor visits, vitamins, or even names. He kissed her cheek the next morning like nothing had been said, picked up his briefcase, and left for the office. That was the beginning of her carrying everything by herself, in every sense of the word. She searched online for prenatal clinics, found one a few blocks from their building. She didn't tell Lennox when her first appointment was, or the second, or the fifth. After a while, she stopped even pretending to wait for him to ask. The doctor was kind, an older woman named Dr. Celeste with warm hands and a voice like someone's auntie. She smiled when Amira told her it was a girl. Amira cried in her car after the ultrasound, not because she was sad, but because no one had been there to share it. She went shopping for baby clothes alone, stared at tiny socks and little headbands, running her fingers over soft fabric, wondering which ones her daughter would like. She bought a crib without asking Lennox for approval, picked out a name after a night of prayer and stillness, Azariah. It meant God has helped. It felt right. When she told him the name, he barely responded. He came home late more often. His cologne smelled different, stronger, more floral. Once, there was lipstick on his collar, pale pink. She didn't mention it. She didn't want to have that fight, not with a baby growing inside her, not when she didn't have the energy to carry both confrontation and pregnancy. Her mother called often, excited to become a grandmother. How's Lennox? She asked one day. He's busy, Amira replied, folding tiny onesies into drawers. Busy's okay, long as he's still there when it counts. Amira nodded, even though her mother couldn't see it. She didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. She used to pray at night with Lennox. Now she prayed alone. Long prayers, not always with words, sometimes just tears and silence, sometimes just her hand on her stomach, asking God to fill the gap her husband had left. And still, she tried to love him. She cooked his favorite meals, laid out his suits when he had important meetings, kissed his cheek, even when he barely noticed. But with every passing week, the weight of silence grew heavier than the baby in her belly. Lennox didn't mistreat her. He didn't yell or slam doors, but he vanished in plain sight. There was something cruel in that, in the way someone could make you feel invisible while still living under the same roof. The baby started kicking during her 6th month. At first, soft flutters, then stronger jabs. She gasped the first time it happened. Her hands flew to her stomach, eyes wide with wonder. She waited for Lennox to come home that night so she could share it with him. He didn't. By the time he walked in at midnight, she was half asleep on the couch, a throw blanket wrapped around her. She started to tell him about the kicks, but he waved her off, saying he had an early flight to catch and needed sleep. She stood in the living room after he disappeared down the hall and whispered into the quiet, "She kicked today. I thought you'd want to know." The next morning, he was gone before sunrise. Amira stopped counting how many dinners she ate alone, stopped asking him where he was going, stopped texting when he stayed out past midnight. She began journaling, letters to Azariah, little thoughts, big feelings, worries, hopes. Some days she'd read them aloud to her belly like bedtime stories. "My darling girl, you haven't even opened your eyes, and I've already promised you everything. I will never make you feel unwanted. never make you feel unseen. Love, Mama. The last trimester hit harder than she expected. Back pain, swollen ankles, fatigue. But she kept moving. She took maternity photos with the help of a friend from work. Lennox said he had meetings that day. She wore a soft ivory dress that hugged her belly, stood beneath golden light in Central Park, and tried to smile like everything was okay. She told the photographer not to capture her hands. They looked too empty. 2 weeks before her due date, Lennox mentioned a gala in Manhattan. Just for the night, he said, adjusting his cufflinks. I'll be back late. Will there be press? She asked. Of course. These things always draw headlines. She looked down at her stomach. What if I go into labor? He chuckled. You're early. Babies don't usually come 2 weeks before, but they can. He kissed her forehead lightly. Text me if anything happens. That was it. No concern. No backup plan. No driver on standby. She stood at the window after he left and watched the black car drive away. She felt Azariah shift inside her and rested a hand gently over her stomach. It's just us, sweetheart. It happened that Thursday night. The cramps started while she was cooking. At first, she thought it was gas. Then the pain sharpened, slicing through her spine in waves. She dropped the spoon and gripped the kitchen counter. Her phone was on the table. She dragged herself to it, fingers trembling as she scrolled to Lennox's name. She called. It rang. No answer. She called again, straight to voicemail. She didn't bother with a third try. She grabbed her hospital bag, already packed weeks ago, and made her way down to the street. A doorman saw her bent over, wide-eyed. Ma'am, are you? Uber's on the way, she gritted out. Should I call someone? She shook her head. No one's coming. When the car arrived, the driver looked nervous. Ma'am, you sure you don't want to go straight to emergency? That's where I'm headed. The ride felt eternal. Her water broke halfway there. She bit her lip until it bled. When she got to the hospital, nurses rushed out with a wheelchair. The contractions were fast, too fast. They asked if someone was with her. No, she whispered. It's just me. They nodded, didn't press, got her inside. Hooked up, monitored, prepped. 12 hours of labor. No hand to hold, no voice to soothe, just pain and determination. And at 2:47 a.m., Azariah Waverly came into the world with a cry loud enough to break the silence Amira had been drowning in. The nurse helped adjust Amira's pillow as the early morning light seeped through the curtains. Her body ached from every angle, the kind of ache that wasn't just physical. But Azariah slept quietly in the bassinet beside her. Her tiny chest moved up and down with a rhythm that made everything feel both surreal and sacred. The nurse smiled. She's a calm one. Hardly cried when we bathed her. Amira managed a soft smile. She's been calm from the womb. The nurse's gaze lingered. Do you want me to call anyone? Your partner? Family? Amira shook her head gently. No, thank you. After she left, the room returned to silence. The hum of machines, the occasional page on the hospital intercom, and Azariah's tiny breaths. Amira turned to her phone. She hadn't touched it since the night before, too consumed by pain, nurses, and the rush of everything. Her screen lit up. 6 missed calls, none from Lennox. 2 from her mother. A few texts from friends, nothing from him. Her throat tightened. Her fingers scrolled through social media, almost on reflex. She wasn't looking for anything. Maybe distraction, maybe noise. That's when she saw it. A post from a luxury event photographer she didn't even follow. Tagged photos, Manhattan, Charity Gala, 2023. Her heart stilled. There he was, Lennox, in a crisp black tuxedo, bow tie perfectly straight, holding a champagne glass in one hand, the other resting gently on the lower back of a woman in a red satin gown. Her dress clung to every curve. Her lips were painted the same red as her nails. She was laughing. He was smiling. The photo was time-stamped, 9:06 p.m., exactly 3 hours after Amira had called him. Exactly 2 hours before Azariah came into the world. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Her chest rose and fell with a slow rage she hadn't felt before. It wasn't loud. It wasn't screaming. It was worse than that. It was quiet. She blinked, closed the app, locked her phone. Her baby stirred in the bassinet. Amira turned to her, pushed the photo out of her mind, and reached down to lift her gently into her arms. Azariah yawned, her tiny mouth opening in a perfect O. She nuzzled into her mother's chest without a care in the world. Amira kissed her forehead. "You didn't need him to arrive," she whispered. "And neither do I." Around noon, a knock sounded on the door. She knew it before she even looked up. Lennox stepped in, holding a bouquet of white lilies and a soft apology on his face. "Hey," he said, voice low. Amira didn't respond. She looked down at Azariah, cradled in her arms. He stepped closer, placed the flowers on the table. "I tried to get here earlier, got stuck in back-to-back meetings." Still, she said nothing. He walked to the bassinet, looked down at the child he had helped create. "She's beautiful," he said. Amira looked at him then, her eyes sharper than they'd ever been. "She was born 8 hours ago." He nodded, lips tight. "I know. There was no way I could leave. There's always a way." His shoulders dropped, but his voice stayed neutral. "Amira, I said I'm sorry. I didn't expect the timing. You weren't due yet." She shifted Azariah slightly in her arms. She came early because she was ready. Pity her father wasn't. He walked to the edge of the bed, looking down at her now. "Can I hold her?" She hesitated for just a second, then slowly lifted Azariah and placed her in his arms. He cradled her awkwardly, unfamiliar with the weight, the fragility. His hands were too stiff. His eyes didn't soften. "She has your chin," Amira said. He nodded. "She's got your nose." He rocked her once, then twice, then looked back up. "Where are the diapers?" "In the bag, beside the couch." He passed the baby back too soon, as if he was done. She took Azariah back gently, whispering softly to her again. Lennox sat, looked around the room, then at the silent TV. "How long will they keep you here?" "Maybe one more night." He nodded again. "You need anything?" "No." Another pause. "I brought flowers. I noticed." He cleared his throat. "I'll tell the team to block my afternoon tomorrow. I'll come back." She didn't nod. Didn't agree. Didn't say anything at all. The tension wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Some silences speak louder than words ever could. He stayed for 10 more minutes, scrolled through his phone, looked at the wall, asked one more question about feeding, then said he had to go. As he stood to leave, he kissed her forehead. She didn't return the gesture. When the door closed behind him, Amira leaned her head back and let out a long, shaky breath. Azariah shifted and made a soft sound in her sleep. Amira looked down at her daughter again. "You didn't ask to come into a broken home," she said softly. "But I promise you this, I won't let that break you." She turned the lights low, pulled her baby closer, and allowed herself to rest, because tomorrow she would start preparing for the next step, one that no longer included Lennox. 2 weeks after being discharged, Amira stood by the window of their penthouse, staring at the skyline she used to admire. The view hadn't changed. But she had. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Azariah was asleep in her bassinet in the corner, wrapped in her favorite soft grey blanket. Her little fingers occasionally twitched in her sleep, but her breathing stayed steady, peaceful. Amira's suitcase sat open on the bed behind her, not because she was going anywhere today, but because she'd already made up her mind. She had found a townhouse in Silver Lake, modest, 2 bedrooms, and far from Lennox's world. A friend from her former company had helped her find it. She'd put down the deposit herself using her savings and the last paycheck, from a consulting gig she'd taken before her maternity leave. Her name was on the lease, only hers. She hadn't told Lennox yet. He'd only come by 3 times since the hospital. Each visit was shorter than the last. He always came with something: designer baby clothes, imported formula, new gadgets Amira didn't ask for. He held Azariah like she was breakable. Never stayed long enough to learn her rhythms. Never asked how Amira was healing. Never asked how she was managing the late nights, the feedings, the fear. Each time he left, she felt more convinced she didn't need him to stay. The final push came the night he showed up with a business associate, a man Amira had never met, and casually introduced him while she was still in pajamas, her hair tied up, Azariah fussing in her arms. "She just needs a little sunlight," Lennox had said to his guest, laughing. "My wife gets a bit moody with all this baby stuff." Amira had excused herself to the bedroom. She locked the door, fed Azariah, then started searching U-Haul prices online. Now, standing in the room they once shared, she zipped the suitcase shut. Lennox returned later that evening. His tie was loosened, and he looked tired. "Hey," he said. "Sorry I didn't call earlier. Meetings ran long." She nodded. "We need to talk." He glanced at her, noticing the tone. "Is something wrong with the baby?" "No," she said calmly. "She's fine." He exhaled, walked to the fridge, poured himself a glass of water. "So, I'm moving out." He turned slowly. "Excuse me? I've signed a lease. It's in Silver Lake. It's quiet, safer. I need my own space." "You already have space." "No, Lennox," she said. "I have square footage. I don't have a partner." His jaw tightened. "You're just overwhelmed. We can get a nanny." "I'm not overwhelmed," she interrupted, voice steady. "I'm clear. You want to move out? Like a trial separation?" "This isn't a trial. This is my decision." He stared at her. "Amira, we're married." "Were we married the night she was born?" she asked. "Because I remember you were smiling in a photo with another woman while I was pushing your daughter into this world." He didn't respond. "I begged for crumbs for too long. I won't do it anymore. You're making a mistake." "No," she said. "I made the mistake of thinking love was enough. I made the mistake of waiting for you to choose me." He crossed his arms. "What will people say? Let them talk. What about appearances? Press? My board?" She stepped closer. "I gave birth alone, while you smiled for cameras. You don't get to worry about appearances now." For the first time in weeks, she saw something flicker across his face. Maybe guilt, maybe realization. But it came too late. She walked past him, picked up Azariah, and began packing the diaper bag. "I'll be gone by tomorrow." He opened his mouth to say something but closed it again. He walked out without a word. The next morning, a black SUV waited outside the building. Her friend Camila helped her load everything. Azariah cooed in her car seat, unaware that her life was about to shift, not in chaos, but in clarity. The townhouse smelled of fresh paint and possibility. It wasn't grand. The walls were bare. The rooms echoed, but it was hers. She set Azariah's crib in the smaller bedroom, then opened all the windows to let the light in. She ordered takeout, sat on the floor, and ate dinner with her legs crossed while Azariah napped beside her. For the first time in months, she felt peace. The next week passed quietly. She unpacked in pieces, built furniture slowly, set up her laptop, and replied to old clients who had reached out for freelance help. Azariah cried at night, and Amira learned to pace, hum, and soothe. The exhaustion was real, but so was the reward. Her mother visited 2 weekends later. The moment she stepped inside, her eyes filled. "This place feels like you," she whispered. Amira smiled. "It's a start." They sat on the back porch while Azariah napped inside. Her mom looked at her carefully. "You okay?" "I'm not broken," Amira replied. "I'm just rebuilding." That Sunday night, she sat at her desk, drafting invoices. She paused and looked over at a picture she had pinned to the wall, not of Lennox, but of Azariah's tiny feet from the hospital. That was the only memory she needed to carry. She didn't need to hate Lennox, didn't need revenge. She just needed distance, and a future that no longer revolved around someone who forgot how to hold her heart. When he called a few days later to check in, she kept the conversation short. He asked if Azariah had started holding her bottle yet. She hadn't. He said he'd try to stop by. She told him to call first. He never called, and she stopped waiting. The sound of tiny feet pattering across hardwood floors had become the rhythm of Amira's mornings. Azariah had just turned 1 and had decided, all on her own, that walking was far superior to crawling. She walked with a wobble, arms slightly outstretched for balance, but her confidence, untouchable. Amira sipped from her chipped blue mug and watched from the kitchen as her daughter toddled. Across the living room, gripping a wooden spoon in one hand and a stuffed animal in the other. "Slow down, ma'am," Amira called, laughing softly. Azariah turned, grinned, then dropped both items and flopped down onto the rug. They'd made it through the first year. Through teething, night terrors, diaper explosions, and all the doubt. There were days Amira cried quietly in the shower. Days she wondered if she was doing enough. Days she counted coins before grocery trips. But she had kept going. Now the townhouse felt lived in. Not perfect, but warm. Photos lined the hallway. The fridge was covered in magnets, grocery lists, and stick-on alphabet letters. Her bedroom was smaller than before, but the bed felt softer, the air lighter, and the consulting firm she'd started from her couch. It was growing. It had started with a single client, a small startup that needed help cleaning up their back-end systems. Amira took the job for less than she was worth because she needed the experience under her own brand. Word of mouth did the rest. Now, a year later, she had 6 consistent clients. She worked flexible hours, took Zoom meetings during nap time, and managed her team of 2 part-time contractors. They called her boss, she'd never asked them to, but it stuck. She didn't miss the penthouse. She didn't miss the housekeepers or the wine walls or the empty table settings built for show. She missed who she used to be before she felt disposable. But even that version of herself was coming back, in a new form. Stronger, sharper, quieter maybe, but firmer. Lennox hadn't visited in 3 months. The last time he came, Azariah had cried when he held her. She didn't recognize him. He stayed for less than 30 minutes, said something vague about board meetings and travel, then left without finishing his coffee. Amira didn't try to make him stay. She'd stopped explaining things to people who had already shown her they weren't listening. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A reminder popped up. Client pitch call, 11 a.m. She glanced at the clock. 45 minutes. She still had time to get Azariah settled before the nanny arrived. They couldn't afford full-time care, but Amira had found a young college student, Brielle, who came 3 days a week for half-days. She was sweet, patient, and completely in love with Azariah's curls. Brielle arrived on time, as always, with a granola bar in one hand and her laptop in the other. "How's our favorite genius baby?" she asked, scooping Azariah up and spinning her gently. Woke up ready to conquer, Amira smiled. "I've got a pitch today. Should be wrapped by 1. Got it. We'll be in the playroom." As the door closed behind them, Amira turned back to her laptop. This pitch was a big one, a mid-sized SaaS company looking to overhaul their internal systems. A 6-month contract if she landed it. The kind of account that could double her income and expand her firm's reach. She logged into Zoom, straightened her headset, and exhaled slowly. Her pitch was clean, direct, and tailored. She spoke with clarity, confidence, a rhythm she had carved through practice, failure, and learning on the fly. They asked questions, some technical, some strategic. She answered them all. The meeting ended with polite nods and a "we'll be in touch soon." She closed her laptop, stretched her back, and smiled. Whatever happened, she had shown up. Fully. Azariah squealed in the other room. Amira heard Brielle laughing. She stood, walked to the doorway, and peeked in. Her daughter had a crayon in one hand and a tiny book in the other, babbling nonsense and pointing at pictures like she was teaching a class. "She's got opinions today," Brielle grinned. "Always," Amira chuckled. "She gets that from her mama." They spent the rest of the afternoon slow. Lunch was leftover pasta and fruit slices. Azariah smeared yogurt all over her high chair and then giggled when Amira tried to wipe it off. The mess didn't bother her anymore. The moments mattered more. When Azariah went down for a nap, Amira folded laundry on the couch and turned on a podcast. The host was interviewing a mother who started her company while raising twins alone. Amira paused it halfway through and whispered to herself, "I'm not the only one." That night, after dinner and bath time, she sat by Azariah's crib, stroking her hair gently. "You know what?" she whispered. "We're going to be okay, even on the hard days." She wasn't waiting for someone to rescue her anymore. She already had everything she needed, even if it looked different than she expected. The email came on a Wednesday afternoon while Amira was wiping applesauce off the floor. Subject line, "Women in Tech Panel, Speaker Invitation." She almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But the sender was real, a non-profit organization that supported women of color in the tech industry. They were hosting a panel in downtown LA, and one of the speakers had dropped out. Someone had recommended her. They wanted her to fill the slot. She blinked twice before rereading it. It wasn't the kind of thing she usually said yes to. She kept a low profile. No glossy branding. No social media campaigns with her face on it. Her business had grown through referrals and results, not buzz. But something in her chest said, "Go." She replied with a cautious yes. The event was the following week. She bought a new blazer, one that hugged her shoulders without screaming for attention, straightened her curls, printed business cards, left Azariah with Brielle, and drove herself downtown, stomach tight with nerves she hadn't felt since her first client pitch. The venue was modest, a modern co-working space with glass walls and warm lights. The panel included 3 women and 1 man, a non-profit founder named Malik Osei. She noticed him immediately, not because he was loud, but because he wasn't. He listened when others spoke, took notes, smiled when someone made a smart point. He looked comfortable in his skin, which was rare in rooms like this. When it was Amira's turn to speak, she kept it honest. No over-polished anecdotes, no buzzwords, just her story, starting from burnout at her corporate job to launching her firm in a 1-bedroom with a newborn asleep in the next room. The room listened. When she finished, there was a moment of stillness, then applause. Then hands went up for questions. After the panel ended, people milled around for networking. Amira had 1 foot toward the exit when Malik approached. "You spoke like someone who's lived it," he said. "I have," she replied. He offered a hand. "Malik Osei, connect." She shook it. "Amira Jennings Analytics." He tilted his head. "You're the one behind those system audits that flipped a few teams last year, right? You ghost-built a platform for Velocity Labs." She raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know anyone noticed that." "I noticed the quiet ones," he said simply. They didn't talk for long. Just 10 minutes. But it felt different. Easy. There was no pitch, no angle, no ego. He asked thoughtful questions. He didn't dominate the space. He remembered things. As she walked to her car later that night, her heels clicking softly against the pavement, she realized something strange. She'd enjoyed that. Conversation. The attention that wasn't flirtation, but still made her feel seen. The next morning, she found an email from him in her inbox. "Would love to grab coffee sometime. No pressure. Even if it's over Zoom and we both forget to mute." She stared at the message for a full minute before smiling. She replied, "Coffee sounds good. I don't bite. Unless you insult my data structure preferences." Their first call was virtual. Scheduled for 30 minutes. Lasted 90. They talked about work, about non-profits, about parenting. Though Malik didn't have children of his own. He asked about Azariah, but not in a passing way. He wanted to know how old she was, what she liked, what made her laugh. He didn't ask about Lennox. She didn't offer. Over the next few weeks, they kept talking. Coffee calls turned into voice notes. Voice notes turned into a dinner invitation. Amira hesitated. She hadn't been on a real date in over 2 years. She wasn't sure she wanted to blur that line. But curiosity nudged louder than fear. They met at a quiet spot in Echo Park. No candle-lit gimmicks, no cameras, just good food and warmth. Malik showed up in a navy sweater and clean sneakers. He held the door open. Asked the hostess for a quieter booth. Didn't check his phone once. "You seem tired," he said halfway through dinner. "Single mom life," she replied. "You need a village," he said. "I'm building one." He nodded. "Start with one person, then add slowly. No rush." She looked at him carefully. "You volunteering?" He smiled. "I'm showing up. You decide what that means. No pressure, no performance. Just presence." When they hugged goodbye, he didn't linger. He didn't try to push past the space she held around herself. He simply said, "Let me know when you feel like talking again." And she did. 2 days later, she called. It started with errands. Malik would text Amira in the mornings. "Need anything from the farmer's market? Passing by the post office. Want me to drop something off? I make a dangerous banana bread. Can I leave some by your door?" He never asked for access, but Amira noticed he was always close when it mattered. One Friday, Azariah spiked a low fever and Amira called off 2 meetings. Her energy dropped by noon, and she hadn't had anything to eat. She opened the fridge, found it nearly empty, and sighed. At 3 p.m., Malik texted, "Something told me to swing by." He showed up 30 minutes later with soup, ginger tea, and soft bread still warm from the bag. He didn't stay, just handed it over and said, "Call if you need anything. No pressure." It was the no pressure part that softened something in her. Lennox had given her gifts, but always with a string. A condition. A performance. Malik offered presents, then let her choose what to do with it. They began seeing each other once a week, not in any official way, no labels, no long talks about what are we, just easy company. Walks through the park, tea at her kitchen table while Azariah tried to steal his phone. Quiet dinners after the baby fell asleep. He never asked to spend the night. He never leaned too far in. But every time he left, Amira found herself wishing he'd stayed just 10 more minutes. Azariah adored him. At first, she'd watch Malik cautiously, clinging to Amira's leg. But Malik was patient. He let her warm up on her terms. He'd crouch to her level, hand her toys, or make silly faces across the room until she laughed. One evening, while Malik was helping Amira clean up after dinner, Azariah tugged on his pant leg. He bent down. "Yes, little lady?" She pointed to the hallway bookshelf. "Read." Amira blinked. "She doesn't usually." Malik smiled. "Let's do it." He lifted her gently, settled on the rug, and let her choose the book. Amira watched from the doorway, heart full and unfamiliar. He read slowly, giving each animal its own voice, pausing for Azariah's giggles. When the story ended, she yawned and leaned her head against his shoulder. "You got her to relax faster than I ever do," Amira said softly. Malik looked up. "Kids know energy. She trusts you. I just borrowed some of that trust." After Azariah was in bed, they sat on the couch, a quiet hum between them. "You're good with her," Amira said. "I was raised by a single mom. I remember what she needed. I guess I try to be that." She didn't say anything right away, but her eyes lingered. "You're not trying to win points?" "Nope." "You're not here to fix anything?" He shook his head. "I'm here because I want to be." That night, she didn't ask him to stay, but she didn't want him to leave either. The next time he came over, he brought a plant, a simple one. Green, small, in a grey pot. "It doesn't ask for much," he said. "Water once a week, good sunlight, it'll stick around." Amira placed it on the windowsill. Later that week, Azariah got fussy after a nap. Her teeth were cutting again. Amira rocked her, walked the floor, tried frozen bananas and toys. Nothing worked. She texted Malik. She didn't expect him to respond right away. 10 minutes later, he was at the door. He took Azariah gently, rested her against his chest, and started humming a soft melody she hadn't heard before. Within minutes, she stopped crying, just melted into his shoulder. Amira stared, speechless. "You're magic," she whispered. "No," he replied. "Just paying attention." They didn't call it love. Not yet. But something real had already started to grow. The night was warm. One of those late spring evenings where the air felt soft, like a blanket pulled fresh from the dryer. Azariah had gone to sleep early after a long, playful day in the park. Amira had just finished washing dishes when Malik knocked lightly on the back door. He carried 2 small takeout containers and a bottle of sparkling cider. "You looked tired over text," he said. "Thought I'd come interrupt." She smiled, brushing a damp curl from her forehead. "You're the least stressful interruption I've had in months." They ate on the back patio, barefoot, their chairs close but not touching. The city hummed in the distance, and overhead stars peeked out through thin clouds. Amira leaned back and looked up. "I forgot skies could be this quiet." "You don't get this at the top of penthouses," Malik said. "Up there, all you hear is your own echo." She turned to him. "Did you always want this life? The non-profit, the neighborhood events, mentoring kids?" He shrugged. "I thought I wanted Wall Street. I had the suits, the ego, the go-get-it speeches. But I didn't sleep well. My mama said, 'If your soul's tired, the money's not worth it.' So I left." She chuckled. "My mom would have said, 'If your man's not listening, the love ain't real.'" They both laughed softly. The silence after wasn't awkward. It stretched out, comfortable, real. Malik looked at her then. Not with hunger, not with entitlement, but with warmth. "You're not easy to read, Amira." I stopped offering subtitles. "Still," he said, "I like the way your story unfolds, page by page." Something inside her shifted. She stood slowly and walked to the sliding door. "You coming in?" she asked. He stood, surprised, but followed. Inside, the house felt smaller, dimmer, closer. She led him to the living room, where the sofa still had a throw blanket half folded over the armrest. She sat first. He joined, leaving just enough space between them to let her decide. She leaned her head on his shoulder. For a moment, they didn't speak. Then she whispered, "I'm scared to like this." "I know. Not because of you," she added. "Because of what I lost, what I accepted, what I let slide." He turned his face slightly. "You were surviving. That's not weakness, that's muscle." She lifted her eyes to his. "I don't want to be rescued." "I'm not here to rescue you," he said. "I'm here because you make staying feel better than leaving." Her breath caught, not from shock, from how true it felt. She leaned in first. Their lips met, slowly, without rush, without expectation. It wasn't desperate. It was careful, intentional, the kind of kiss that asked permission with every move. He rested his hand on her knee, light as a whisper. When they pulled apart, her eyes stayed closed for a second longer. "I haven't let anyone that close in a long time." "Then I'm honored," he said. He didn't try to take it further, didn't press her into anything more. Instead, he reached for her hand. They sat there like that for a while, hands linked, breaths even. When it was time for him to go, he kissed her cheek and said, "I'm still here if you want me tomorrow." And she did. The doorbell rang at 9:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. Amira was still in her robe, a bottle in one hand, Azariah on her hip. She hadn't been expecting anyone. Malik had work, Brielle wasn't due until noon, and she hadn't ordered anything. She opened the door carefully, only to freeze. Lennox stood on her porch, dressed in all black, sunglasses in one hand and a paper bag in the other. "Good morning," he said, as if they'd spoken just yesterday, as if it wasn't almost 4 months since his last visit, as if he hadn't ghosted his daughter's first birthday. Amira didn't move. He glanced down at Azariah. "She's getting big. Babies do that," she said flatly. "I brought coffee," he added, holding the bag up. She hesitated, then opened the door halfway. "She's teething. You've got 5 minutes." He stepped in, looking around like it was a stranger's home, which, in truth, it had become. The smell of lavender and lemon cleaner, toys in neat bins, a bulletin board of toddler art, family photos, none with him in them. He sat on the edge of the armrest like he was waiting to be dismissed. "I've been traveling," he started. "International expansion." "You always have a reason," she replied, "but you never have a presence." He bristled, but didn't argue. "I wanted to check in. See how you two are." "We're fine." That's what everyone says when they're not. She set Azariah in her playpen and crossed her arms. "Why are you really here, Lennox?" He looked at her directly for the first time. "Because I heard you were at the Women in Tech event last month." Panel speaker. "Someone from my team forwarded the clip. And you looked different. Sure of yourself." "I've always been sure. You just stopped paying attention. I didn't come here to fight." "No," she said. "You came here because the image of me standing on a stage without you beside me bothered your ego." He exhaled. "You don't have to take shots." "I'm not. I'm stating facts." There was a knock at the back door. Malik. Amira didn't flinch. She walked past Lennox, opened the door, and smiled. "Hey," Malik said, holding a container of strawberries and a folded laptop case. "I figured Azariah might want fruit for breakfast again." Lennox stood up when he saw him. "You've got someone here?" Amira turned, calm. "This is Malik. He's a friend." Lennox's jaw clenched. "That fast?" Malik didn't step forward, didn't puff up his chest. He simply said, "We met months ago." But it wasn't fast. It was intentional. Amira moved between them. "Malik, can you check on Azariah while I finish this conversation?" "Of course," he said, brushing past Lennox without a glance. Lennox lowered his voice. "So this is what we're doing now." "What I'm doing," she corrected, "is choosing peace over performance." "He's not her father." "No, but he shows up like one." That landed. Lennox looked down, then around the room again. "This used to be us." "No," she replied. "You used to take up space. But we were never a we in this home." "Not really. I thought we'd find our way back," he said. "Eventually." "You thought I'd stay waiting," she whispered. "But I didn't." He nodded slowly, eyes dropping to the floor. "You still wear the ring?" She held up her left hand. Bare. He exhaled through his nose, then set the coffee on the table. "I hope he's who you think he is," Lennox said. "I know who he is." That's the difference. He didn't argue. He walked to the door, opened it, and paused. "Tell Azariah I'll call." Amira didn't promise she'd answer. He left without looking back. Malik walked out a moment later, wiping Azariah's hands with a baby wipe. She tried to eat 2 strawberries at once. Ambitious. Amira sat down, breath heavy. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just tired of men who think showing up late still counts as love." Malik didn't press. He sat beside her, let her exhale. They didn't need to talk about it. She'd already chosen. And this time, she wasn't second-guessing herself. The next few days passed quietly. Lennox didn't call. Amira didn't expect him to. Azariah went back to teething fuss, and Malik brought over cold washcloths, teething rings, and, for Amira, lavender tea. He didn't mention Lennox. He didn't need to. His silence was respectful, not avoidant. One night after Azariah had finally gone down, Amira sat on the couch with her journal in her lap, flipping through pages. Some entries were full of hope. Some were scrawled during dark, tired days. And some were raw, angry. The night she gave birth. The week she moved out. The first time she saw Lennox with another woman. She ran her fingers along one entry. "I won't compete for love. Not with another woman. Not with his job. Not with his silence." Her throat tightened. She hadn't cried in months. Not because the pain was gone, but because she had placed it in a room. in her mind, locked it, and thrown herself into building a new life. But sitting there, with Malik in the kitchen humming softly as he wiped down the high chair, the emotions came back. Not rage, not grief, release. "I think I'm ready to forgive him," she said quietly. Malik looked up. "Lennox?" She nodded. "Not to fix things. Not to forget. Just so I'm not carrying him around anymore." Malik didn't respond right away. He walked over, sat beside her. "Forgiveness isn't for him," he said. "It's for you." And for her. She looked down at her lap. "I know. I hate that he'll always be part of her story." Malik reached for her hand. "But not the best part." That night, after Malik left, Amira picked up her phone and dialed. Lennox didn't answer. Voicemail picked up after 2 rings. She didn't leave a long message. "Lennox, I'm letting it go. Not because you asked, not because you earned it, but because I won't let bitterness be the language our daughter learns. Take care." She hung up. The air felt different after. The next morning, she took Azariah for a walk. They stopped at the flower shop on the corner. She let her daughter choose a small bouquet, all yellow, all bright. She placed the flowers in the center of their dining table, fresh, unbothered. Simple. Later, while feeding Azariah, Amira told her a new story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who changed her mama's world. Not because she needed saving, but because she gave her mama the courage to save herself. Azariah clapped her hands, babbling happily. Amira kissed her forehead. She was done with bitterness. What came next was joy, real joy, on her terms. Have you ever had to forgive someone? Not because they deserved it, but because you deserved peace. Too many people carry heartbreak long after the door has closed. But healing begins the moment you choose yourself over history. If you've ever walked away from something heavy and started again with nothing but hope and a heartbeat, this story is for you. Tell us in the comments, was Amira right to let go? Would you have done the same? Or would you have waited for closure that might never come? Tap like if her quiet strength moved you. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more powerful stories that reflect the truth we often live, but rarely say out loud. It had been 3 weeks since Lennox's visit. He hadn't called. Amira hadn't reached out either. Life continued, and it felt lighter. The air in the townhouse seemed easier to breathe. Azariah was sleeping through most nights now, and her vocabulary had grown enough to string together declarations like "no nap" and "mama juice." She loved when Malik came over. Sometimes she'd sit by the front door with a book in her lap, waiting like she just knew he'd show. Most of the time she was right. Malik never forced his way into Amira's space. He didn't move in. He didn't overstay. But he began to show up more often, and in quiet ways. He brought groceries without asking, fixed the loose door hinge, read Azariah bedtime stories while Amira handled emails. She never asked him to. That made it mean more. One Saturday morning, they all went to the park. Malik wore a navy hoodie and joggers, Azariah in her polka dot overalls, Amira in sweats and a messy bun. Nothing fancy, just comfort. They took turns chasing Azariah as she ran from swings to slides to the grassy hill where she rolled and giggled. Amira hadn't laughed like that in years, the kind of laugh that came from joy, not survival. When they got back home, Malik cooked breakfast, real breakfast. Eggs, sweet potato hash, toast with honey, and fruit slices cut into hearts. "Who are you trying to impress?" Amira asked, eyeing the plate. He raised a brow. "You, obviously." Azariah clapped as she chewed. More toast. "Lick." Amira smiled at her daughter, then looked at him. "She's already sold. I'm hoping you're a harder pitch." Later that night, after Azariah was asleep, they sat outside under the patio string lights. Amira curled up on the bench, a throw blanket over her legs, Malik beside her, his arm resting behind her. He looked at her, quiet. "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "What do you want from me?" Not pressure, not expectations, just truth. She looked up at the sky before answering. I want someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm too much and not enough in the same breath. Someone who shows up not out of guilt, but out of love. Someone Azariah can depend on without question. And for you? He asked. For me? She repeated. He waited. She exhaled. I want softness I don't have to earn. He reached for her hand, held it with intention. That's all I've ever wanted to give. She leaned into him. This time, she didn't pull away. He kissed her like a promise, steady, grounded, without hurry. She rested her forehead against his and whispered, You scare me. He smiled softly. Because I'm not him? No. Because you might be better than anything I imagined. Then let's take it slow, he said. Real love doesn't rush, but it never disappears either. She kissed him again. It wasn't a beginning. It was the next chapter, and this one was written with intention. The rain came quietly overnight, soft taps against the bedroom window. Amira had always loved that sound, the hush it brought. Tonight, it layered the house in calm. Malik had stayed late, not because they planned it, but because the hours had slipped by in conversation. Slow kisses and laughter that came easier than either of them expected. Azariah was asleep. Malik was stretched across the couch, half reading a book, one hand tucked behind his head. Amira stood in the doorway, wearing his sweatshirt and a look she hadn't worn in years. Peace. You should stay, she said quietly. He looked up. Are you sure? I wouldn't say it if I wasn't. He didn't hesitate. He marked his book, stood, and followed her down the hall. In the bedroom, the lamp cast a soft glow. Amira closed the door gently behind them. She moved slowly, not nervous, not uncertain, just present. She sat on the bed and watched as Malik kicked off his shoes and peeled off his hoodie, revealing the simple grey t-shirt underneath. He looked at her, then walked over and sat beside her, careful not to rush the moment. Their hands found each other again. I haven't shared my space like this in a long time, she said. I'm not here to crowd it, he replied. I'm here to earn it. She turned to him, her voice low. You already have. They kissed, not urgently but fully, like people who had waited long enough to know the value of slowing down. As the night stretched on, clothes fell away, but what stayed was the reverence. Malik didn't touch her like she was something to conquer. He held her like something already whole. Amira didn't hide parts of herself. She let him see the stretch marks on her hips, the scar from her emergency C-section, the shadows beneath her eyes. He never flinched. He only kissed each one. You're beautiful, he said softly. She didn't argue. Not this time. They made love slowly, without rush or performance. Just warmth, truth, and deep release. And afterward, they lay tangled beneath the sheets, her head on his chest, their legs intertwined, the rain still whispering outside. It wasn't about passion alone. It was about safety, trust. I've never had this before, she admitted. He stroked her back. Then, let's get used to it together. They drifted to sleep like that, bodies close, breathing steady. In the early hours, Amira woke to the soft sound of tiny feet padding across the hallway. The door creaked slightly, and Azariah peeked in, rubbing her eyes with one hand and dragging her blanket with the other. Mama, she whispered. Amira sat up slowly. Hey, baby. Azariah walked in, eyes adjusting to the dim light. Her curls were messy. She was still half asleep. When she saw Malik sitting up beside Amira, she froze for just a moment. He smiled. Hi, sunshine. She blinked, then climbed onto the bed like it was the most natural thing in the world. Amira pulled her close. You okay? Azariah nodded. Had a noise. Malik shifted, making room. You want to stay with us a little? Azariah cuddled into Amira's side, then looked at Malik. You stay too? Amira's heart twisted. Malik nodded gently. If it's okay with your mama. Azariah didn't wait. She crawled over and curled up against his side, her head resting on his arm, her little hand on his chest. Amira watched them, emotion welling in her chest. not sadness, something deeper. Azariah had known chaos, even in her earliest days. But here, in this moment, she felt safe enough to sleep between two people who loved her in different but powerful ways. Eventually, all three of them drifted back to sleep, the dawn creeping in behind soft grey clouds. That morning, Amira woke to the smell of coffee and Malik humming in the kitchen. Azariah sat on the counter in her pajamas, eating a banana, wearing one of Malik's baseball caps that swallowed her whole head. "Morning, boss," Malik grinned. Azariah lifted the hat. "I'm boss now." Amira laughed. "Looks like I've been replaced." They ate breakfast together. No rush. Malik helped pack Azariah's bag for Brielle, who arrived at 10. After a warm goodbye, he lingered by the door, keys in hand. "Want me to come by tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "And not just to drop off strawberries." He stepped closer, kissed her forehead. "Then I will—" She watched him walk to his car, her fingers pressed to the spot he'd kissed. When she turned back inside, Azariah was sitting in the middle of the living room, flipping through a picture book. "Mama?" "Yes, baby?" "I like lick." Amira smiled. "Me too." She sat down beside her daughter, wrapping her arms around her. Love didn't have to roar to be real. Sometimes it entered quietly. And stayed. Azariah had just turned 3. She now asked full questions, had a favorite song, and was extremely specific about her morning routines. Blue bowl only. Banana slices, not chunks. Cereal first, milk second. No cartoon until her socks matched. Amira watched her little girl rule the house with a combination of authority and sweetness. She still had her father's chin but her mother's fire, and a personality that belonged to neither. She was her own person now. Independent, fierce, and already negotiating bedtime like she was in a boardroom. Amira smiled each time she caught her mimicking adult phrases. "No meetings today," Azariah announced one morning, arms crossed, when Brielle asked if she wanted to go outside. "I have paperwork." The toddler had dragged a folder full of stickers to the coffee table. That morning, Malik came by with a box of bagels and a sleepy grin. "Guess what she said when I walked in," he said, kicking off his sneakers at the door. "What?" "She told me to go sit in the client corner." Amira nearly choked on her tea. "We have a client corner now?" "I guess so. Apparently, I need to wait quietly while she does her puzzles." Amira leaned against the wall, laughing. "She's been watching too many of my Zoom calls." Malik grinned, setting the bagels on the counter. "It's working. She's already got boundaries." They spent the rest of the morning side by side in the kitchen, Malik making eggs while Amira responded to emails on her phone. Azariah hummed from the living room, dragging her toy laptop across the rug. Things were easy now. No tension, no guessing games, just a steady rhythm that had slowly become their norm. Amira's business had grown significantly. Her name was now floating in rooms she hadn't even stepped into. She had 3 contractors, a virtual assistant, and clients in 5 states. She didn't brag. She didn't flash numbers, but her invoices were respected, and her inbox stayed full. She managed to keep her work hours flexible so she could be present for school pickups, playdates, and weekday dance classes. And Malik, he was still there, always there, but never in the way. He had helped fix her fence, repainted Azariah's room when she asked for sunshine, walls, and stepped in when Amira had a late-night call with a West Coast investor. He never overstepped, but he always offered. That's what made it easy to let him in further. That weekend, they took a family photo. It was Malik's idea, not for a holiday card, not for any announcement, just because he realized there wasn't one. "Azariah's 3, he said, "and I've been in most of her memories. But we've got no photo where all 3 of us are together." Amira paused. "You're right." They hired a local photographer who specialized in candid lifestyle sessions. The shoot took place at a local botanical garden. Azariah wore a soft pink dress and white sneakers. Amira kept it simple in jeans and a flowy blouse. Malik wore his signature grey Henley and khaki chinos. There were no stiff poses, just walking, playing, lifting Azariah onto Malik's shoulders, watching her chase butterflies and shout, "Mama, I'm flying." The photographer sent the images a week later. Amira scrolled through them late at night. Her favorite was the one where she and Malik were looking at each other, not the camera, while Azariah sat between them with a big, gap-toothed grin. It wasn't staged, it wasn't perfect, but it was full of love, full of quiet commitment, full of the life Amira had built brick by brick, choice by choice. She printed the photo and framed it. It now sat on her bedroom dresser, beside a plant Malik gifted her 2 years earlier that somehow hadn't died. One Thursday evening, as the sky turned orange and pink, Malik asked if they could talk. They were on the porch, Azariah asleep, soft music playing from Malik's phone. "I want to ask you something," he said, voice low. Amira looked over, heart steady. "Okay." He pulled something small from his pocket. It wasn't a ring box. It was a key. "To my house," he said. "Not to move in, not yet, but for you to know you can come, that you're welcome, that I'm building something too, not just waiting on yours." Amira stared at the key, then at him. "This isn't a proposal," he added quickly. "Not today, but it's a start, a signal." She took the key slowly, her fingers brushing his. "I've never had someone ask me to share their world, only to leave mine for theirs." He leaned closer. "This world is ours. You, me, her. None of this works if it's just mine." Amira blinked back emotion. She smiled. "Thank you." He took her hand. "Whenever you're ready." She looked at the key in her palm again. Not a demand, not a timeline. An open door. Malik stood to leave, and she walked him to the gate. Just before he stepped out, he turned and said, "Also, I think I want to take Azariah to the aquarium this weekend. Just us. A little date." "You sure?" "I'm ready if you are." Amira paused. "She's going to ask 1,000 questions, and she might throw a tantrum if you pass the jellyfish too fast." He laughed. "I've seen worse." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "She'll love that." He smiled. "Good night, night, Malik." She watched him walk away, the key still warm in her hand. When she closed the door, she felt it in her bones. This was different. This was home. Saturday morning started with tiny feet bouncing on Amira's bed. "Mama, wake up. The fish day is here." Azariah was dressed already, sort of. Her leggings were inside out, and her shirt was on backward, but her excitement made it hard to notice anything else. Malik arrived right on time, holding a little paper crown he had folded from a newspaper. "For the Queen of Sea Creatures," he announced, as Azariah squealed and ran to him. "You ready, Jellybean?" he asked. "Yes, but I need snacks." "I brought a whole bag of them." Amira stood by the door watching them. Her heart ached in the best way. "You sure you're okay taking her by yourself?" she asked. "I've been to battle with teething and tantrums. I think I can handle sea lions and snack breaks." She smiled. "Call me if she turns into a shark." Malik leaned down and kissed her cheek. "We'll be good. Promise." Azariah waved wildly from the back seat as they pulled off, yelling through the window, "Mama, I'll find Nemo!" Amira laughed as the car disappeared down the street. The house was too quiet without them. She took advantage of the rare alone time, cleaned a bit, replied to emails, then sat on the couch and let herself breathe. A nap sounded tempting, but her phone buzzed with photos every hour from Malik. Azariah touching a glass wall where stingrays swam. Azariah eating popcorn with a look of pure joy. Azariah sitting on Malik's shoulders, pointing at a tank of jellyfish. Each picture felt like a stitch in the fabric of something solid, something whole. At 4 p.m., the front door creaked open. Azariah burst through like a wave of noise and excitement. "Mama, Mama!" There were turtles, and the big fish with the big face, and a shark that was fake but still scary. Malik followed behind, smiling. holding her backpack and a paper cup with stickers on the lid. "Someone's still running on aquarium adrenaline," he said. Amira scooped Azariah up. "Did you have fun?" "The best fun. Malik got me the crown and let me feed the fish crackers." She turned, suddenly serious. "Mama, can I tell you a secret?" Amira bent closer. "What's the secret?" Azariah cupped her hand over Amira's ear and whispered, "He's my daddy now." Amira froze. Malik, standing just behind, stopped too. Azariah giggled and kissed Amira's cheek, then ran off toward her toys like she hadn't just dropped something life-altering in the middle of the room. Malik stepped forward slowly. "I didn't say anything to her. I swear." "I know," Amira said softly. "She just said it. I heard." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Amira turned to him. "She's never said that to anyone." Malik swallowed. "I didn't expect her to. I never asked for it. You earned it." He looked at her. "Does that change anything for you?" She took a deep breath. "It changes everything. And also, nothing." "Explain that to me." "It changes everything because it's real, because she chose it, because she feels it." She paused. "And it changes nothing because I already knew what you were to us." He closed the space between them and kissed her. Slow, deep, grateful. Azariah peeked around the corner. "Ew, kissin'." They both laughed. That night, Malik stayed late. Amira watched him and Azariah draw sea creatures on the living room floor while she folded laundry. At bedtime, Azariah reached for Malik instead of Amira. He tucked her in, smoothed her hair, kissed her forehead. "Good night, Jellybean," he whispered. "Good night, Daddy," she said sleepily. Amira stood quietly in the doorway, hand over her mouth. Tears welled in Malik's eyes. Later, when they sat on the couch, he held her hand tighter than usual. "Do you ever feel like this isn't real?" he asked. "All the time." "But it is." She nodded. "It is." He looked at her seriously. "I don't want to tiptoe anymore, Amira. I don't want to see how things go. I'm ready to build a life. With both of you." She met his gaze. "So am I," he exhaled. "I thought I'd need to ask permission to love her like this. You never had to." "I still will," he said, "because I respect where she came from. But more than that, I know what it means to show up." Amira leaned her head on his shoulder. "We're not just healing anymore, Malik. We're growing." He rested his chin on her head. "So what now?" She smiled. "We keep showing up, one day at a time." And they did. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning, plain white, no return address, tucked between a utility bill and a flyer for gutter cleaning. Amira almost threw it in the recycling until she saw her full name typed neatly on the front. Amira Waverley. She hadn't used that name in over 2 years. She opened it without ceremony. The first line made her chest tighten. Notice of intent to establish legal custody rights. Lennox Waverley. She sat down hard on the edge of the couch. Azariah was in the living room, stacking blocks and talking to her stuffed bunny like nothing had changed. Because to her, nothing had. But to Amira, everything shifted in that moment. Malik walked in minutes later, holding 2 paper bags from the farmer's market. He set them on the counter, noticed the look on her face and went still. "What happened?" She didn't speak, just held out the papers. He read them quickly. His jaw clenched once. No raised voice. No dramatic outburst. Just one sharp exhale. "He's filing for custody." Amira nodded slowly. "He's asking for shared legal and partial physical custody." Malik sat beside her, eyes scanning the document again. He never raised her, never showed up. How does he even think he has a case? "Because his name's on the birth certificate," she whispered. "And because he's rich, well-known, image-polished. On paper, he looks like a father. But you and I know better." She looked at him. "You think the court cares about we know better?" Malik didn't answer. He just reached for her hand and held it tight. "I'll get a lawyer," she said quietly. First thing tomorrow. Azariah knocked her tower over and squealed. Malik stood, walked over, and lifted her easily into his arms. "We're okay, Jellybean," he said, kissing her cheek. "We're still okay," but he didn't sound convinced. That night, Amira couldn't sleep. She kept seeing courtrooms in her head. Cold benches, lawyers in dark suits asking questions that twisted the truth. She imagined Lennox in a suit, painting himself as a misunderstood father who wanted to reconnect. She imagined Malik being asked if he had any legal standing. She imagined Azariah being confused, caught in the middle of a mess she didn't ask for. The next morning, Amira met with a lawyer named Renee Bell. Black woman, sharp, direct, the kind of woman who didn't waste time with pleasantries when someone's child was involved. "Do you have proof he's been absent?" Renee asked. "Yes, I have texts, emails, photos, a timeline of visits, or the lack of them. I've kept records since she was born." Renee nodded. "Good. Do you have witnesses who've seen you raise her without support?" "Yes. My nanny, my neighbor, my pastor, my contractor." "Malik." Renee scribbled a note. "And his name is?" "My fiancé," Amira said. It wasn't a lie. Not yet, but it would be true soon enough. Renee looked up, smiling briefly. "That helps, but for now he's not legally relevant. The father has the leverage until we make the case against him." Amira exhaled slowly. "Let me be clear," Renee said. "This isn't a slam dunk. Family court still gives the biological father rights unless we prove harm or abandonment. Your advantage is that he hasn't participated in raising her. But if he decides to show up polished, calm, and claims to want reconciliation, we'll need more than absence. We'll need pattern, intention." Amira nodded. "I'm ready." Over the next few days, the house changed, not in love, but in energy. A quiet tension crept in. Malik tried to stay calm, but Amira caught him staring out the window sometimes, deep in thought. One evening she found him in the kitchen scrubbing a pan that was already clean. "You okay?" she asked. "I hate that he still has power," Malik admitted. "He has paperwork. That's not power. It's still got you calling lawyers and losing sleep." She walked up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. "I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of the system." He turned to her. "Then let's beat it. Together." Azariah was too young to understand, but kids feel energy. She started waking up more often at night, clingier, more sensitive. She'd follow Amira from room to room asking, "You leaving?" "No, baby." Amira would whisper each time, "I'm right here." The custody petition gave Lennox 30 days to file an official claim. In week 2, he showed up, unannounced as always. Amira opened the door with her arms folded. He looked the same, expensive, empty. "We need to talk," he said. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her. "I thought we agreed you didn't show up unless invited." "I don't need an invitation to see my child," Lennox said smoothly. "She's my daughter too." "She's your daughter on a birth certificate," Amira replied. "You were a no-show dad by choice. This sudden burst of paternal interest, what is it? PR problem? Guilty conscience?" "I'm trying to fix things." "No, you're trying to rewrite history." He shifted slightly, the charm slipping. "Look, this doesn't have to be messy. I just want shared custody, partial. I'm not trying to take her away. Why now? She's old enough to understand who I am. If I wait longer, I lose my place. You lost your place years ago." Lennox looked away. The court might not see it that way. They might not, but I will. He stepped back. "I'm trying to do the right thing." She stared at him. The right thing would have been being there the night she was born, the week she had a fever, the month she took her first steps. Now you want to wear a father's jacket because it fits your schedule. He flinched. Amira didn't soften. "You're not here because you love her. You're here because you want control." He didn't argue. She turned toward the door. "If you go through with this, I'll fight. I won't scream. I won't throw dirt. But I will bring the truth." Lennox nodded once, jaw tight. See you in court then. She watched him walk away. He never filed. A week later, Renee called. He withdrew the petition, she said. No explanation. Just silence. Amira sat down on the edge of her bed. Relief, but not joy. Malik walked in with Azariah on his hip. She wants peanut butter toast. Amira smiled. She can have the whole jar. Later that night, Malik pulled her into his arms. You okay? Not yet, she admitted. But I'm getting there. We're getting there. And they were. Together. Always. Amira sat on the back steps of the townhouse, her fingers wrapped around, a warm mug of cinnamon tea, the late evening breeze grazing her skin. It was the first time in weeks that her chest didn't feel tight. Not entirely loose yet, but looser, like someone had finally opened a window in a room she didn't know was suffocating her. Lennox had pulled out. Just like that, the looming custody threat vanished. But the effects hadn't. She could still feel it. Not in her bones, she was stronger than that, but in the quiet moments. The tension had crept into her posture, the way she folded laundry too fast, the way she gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary on the way to preschool drop-off. Now she was noticing, and noticing was the first step to healing. Malik joined her quietly, a bowl of sliced apples in his hand, offering her a piece without a word. They sat in silence for a while. Not the kind that screams of unspoken things, the kind that holds space for what's already been said. You don't have to be okay tonight, he said eventually. I'm not, she admitted, but I'm close. Then let's stay here until you are. She reached for his hand and squeezed. Thank you for not pushing. He shook his head. I've seen too many men confuse support with suffocation. I've seen that too. They didn't say Lennox's name. They didn't need to. The next morning, Amira woke early. Azariah was still sleeping, her stuffed unicorn tucked under one arm. The soft sounds of cartoons still buzzed from the hallway monitor. The house was quiet, safe. She opened her journal and wrote, He didn't break me. He paused me. But I restarted myself. She read it twice, then underlined it. Later that day, she went to her storage bins in the hallway closet. It was time. She pulled out the file labeled Waverley. Inside were documents, old tax records, lease papers, a copy of their marriage license, prenatal receipts. She'd kept it all, not out of sentiment, but out of caution. Today, she shredded half of it. The rest, she scanned and stored digitally under a password-protected drive. Not because she feared him anymore, but because she was now the kind of woman who prepared and then let go. Azariah wandered in an hour later, rubbing her eyes. Mama, where's my purple plate? In the dishwasher, baby. Want cereal? With the honey O's. They sat together at the dining table, Azariah crunching happily, legs swinging beneath her chair. Amira watched her and thought, she's okay. We're okay. No man gets to rattle this again. Later, Malik picked them both up for lunch. They drove out to the hills, grabbed sandwiches from a local deli, and sat under a tree overlooking the city skyline. Do you ever think about leaving LA? Malik asked suddenly. Sometimes, Amira said. But only on Tuesdays when traffic tries to end me. He chuckled. I meant long term. I don't know, she said honestly. This city broke me and built me. Feels personal now. He nodded, thoughtful. I think I'm ready to build wherever you are. She looked over at him. You sure? I wasn't. But I am now. Because Lennox stepped back. No, he said. Because I watched you step forward. That night, after Azariah was in bed, Amira stood at the bathroom sink, brushing her teeth when Malik wrapped his arms around her from behind. You do realize what you did, right? She glanced at him through the mirror. You changed the narrative. You took what could have been a horror story and turned it into a map. For her. For other women. Even for yourself. Amira spit, rinsed, then wiped her mouth with the towel before facing him fully. Do you ever get scared? All the time. Of me? Of losing what we're building. She searched his eyes, the softness in his posture. You're not him, I know. But I don't want to ever make you flinch, even by accident. You haven't, not once. He pulled her into his chest and held her there for a long time. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For not needing me to fix you, and still letting me love you. In the days that followed, Amira started doing small things she hadn't done in years. She danced with Azariah in the living room to old school R&B. She posted a picture of them, all three, at the beach, not caring who saw. She reached out to an old friend for brunch. She applied to speak at another tech conference, this time under her company's name, not as a replacement but as the main event. She stopped waiting for the next hit, stopped preparing for someone to take it all, because the people who mattered were already here, and they weren't leaving. One afternoon, while Azariah napped and Malik was taking a Zoom call, in the next room, Amira made a list on a piece of scratch paper. Things I'm choosing from now on. A soft mornings, A honest conversations, A unapologetic love, A boundaries without. Guilt. Safety that feels earned, A legacy built in peace, not pain. She pinned it to the fridge with a magnet Azariah had painted. That same night, Malik came in from the patio and handed her a folded envelope. She looked at him, curious. What's this? No pressure. Just read it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Petition to adopt, Malik Osei. Her breath caught. You want to adopt her? If you'll let me, he said. If it makes sense for you, for her. I don't need it to be official to love her like mine. But if it means something to you, I'm ready. Tears filled her eyes. It means everything. They didn't need courtrooms or threats for this next part. Just signatures, consent, and love. Amira reached for his hand and whispered, yes. The courthouse was quiet that morning. Not somber, just slow. The kind of quiet where you could hear heels tapping, papers flipping, pens scratching the check-in counter. Amira sat on the long wooden bench outside Department 2B, dressed in a soft navy dress and flats. Malik sat beside her in a grey suit, not too formal but respectful. His knee bounced with nerves, but his hand held steady in hers. On the other side of her, Azariah clutched her sketchpad, oblivious to the adult tension around her. She had drawn a picture earlier that morning, 3 stick figures holding hands beneath, a blue sky with the words written in her 4-year-old handwriting, Mommy, me, Daddy. Amira's throat tightened when she first saw it. Now she kept it folded in her purse. A bailiff finally called their names, and they stood. Inside, the courtroom wasn't grand. Just a judge in plain robes, a clerk, and a social worker they'd already met twice. Please state your name, the judge said, glancing at Malik. Malik Osei. And you are petitioning for the legal adoption of Azariah Thompson? Yes, Your Honor. Is the biological father present? Amira's jaw set. He was notified and signed the relinquishment of rights. The judge nodded and shuffled the documents before her. You understand this adoption is permanent. You will be responsible legally, financially, and emotionally for this child, as if she were born to you. Malik's voice didn't shake. Yes. The judge glanced at Amira. Do you support this petition? I do. Has the child been informed in an age-appropriate manner? We've had those conversations, Amira said softly. Then, the judge said, reaching for her stamp, by the power vested in this court, the petition is granted. Mr. Malik Osei is now the legal parent of Azariah Thompson. Malik exhaled so deeply his chest dropped an inch. Azariah, still coloring, looked up with wide eyes. We done? We're done, baby, Amira whispered, hugging her close. Outside the courthouse, Malik crouched to Azariah's height and said, You know what this means, right? You're my daddy now? I've always been, he said gently. But now the world knows too. She grinned. Can I call you that now? His voice cracked. Please. Okay, Daddy. He pulled her into his arms and held her there like time had stopped. That night, they didn't go out for dinner. They stayed home, made spaghetti together, and ate at the table without distractions. Amira toasted with grape juice in a wineglass. To families built with choice, to healing that sticks, to names that feel like home. They clinked glasses, even Azariah, who raised her little cup with glee. After dinner, when Malik was washing dishes, Amira and Azariah sat in the rocking chair in the living room. "You're happy, Mama?" "Yes, baby." "Why didn't I have a daddy before?" Amira paused, brushing a curl behind her daughter's ear. "Because some people love from a distance, but some people stay. Malik stayed. Did my old daddy leave?" "Yes." Azariah looked thoughtful. "Did it hurt you?" "It did. But not anymore." "Do you love Malik?" "I do." Azariah leaned against her, quiet for a few moments. "Then I do too." A few weeks later, they held a small backyard celebration. Nothing fancy. Just close friends, a few balloons, homemade food, and one banner that read, "Officially ours." Azariah wore a little dress with Osei embroidered on the back. She ran around with her cousins while Malik grilled and Amira laughed. In the kitchen with friends who had watched her grow from fear to fire. Later, while cleaning up, Malik found her standing near the window, staring at the string lights that glowed softly over the yard. "You okay?" he asked. "I didn't know I could feel this kind of safe," she said quietly. "You earned it. Do you ever feel scared you'll mess up?" "All the time." "Me too." He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "But I think love's supposed to come with a little nervousness. It means we're trying." She nodded, resting her head back against his shoulder. "Do you think we'll make it?" "I think we already are." Amira launched her second product line that month. She named it Azariah, a collection of early childhood tech tools with voice narration by real moms and educators. It sold out in 6 days. The press asked for interviews. She gave one. When they asked what kept her going, she said, "Motherhood changed me, but choosing myself every day after that saved me." When they asked if her husband supported her work, she smiled and replied, "My partner does. He's not just supportive. He builds with me." They didn't ask for clarification. They didn't need to. On the anniversary of the day she gave birth alone, Amira wrote a letter. She didn't send it, but she sealed it in an envelope and placed it in her memory box. "Lennox, I grieved who you were long before I left you. I gave birth in silence. I raised our daughter in strength. You didn't destroy me. You sharpened me. And though I forgive you, I do not invite you. We are full now, and I am finally whole." She signed it, folded it neatly, and walked out to the patio, where Malik sat reading. "Can we burn something?" He raised an eyebrow. "Old energy?" She nodded. He grabbed the metal bowl, lit the fire, and together they watched the letter turn to ash. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Only that I didn't love myself like this sooner." Malik kissed her hand. "But you do now, and that's all that matters." The Waverly penthouse had never felt this quiet. Lennox stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan apartment. The city pulsed below, lights blinking like heartbeats in the dark. But the silence in his home wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, a silence that echoed every decision he once thought would never come back to haunt him. He poured himself a drink he didn't want and walked past the untouched dining table. It had been weeks since anyone sat across from him there, months since laughter filled the space. He tried to ignore the way the rooms looked larger now, as if loneliness had stretched the walls wider. She was gone, and now so was everyone else. Not just Amira, not just Azariah, but Candice too, the woman he thought would be his escape. She had moved out 6 weeks ago, after an argument that had started over brunch and ended with broken glass and worse words. "I didn't sign up to raise your guilt," she had snapped. They had been together 2 years, but Candice was never interested in being a mother, especially not to a child who reminded Lennox of everything he lost. The day she left, she didn't cry. She simply packed, called her driver, and didn't look back. Lennox had laughed that night, trying to convince himself it didn't matter. But when he woke up the next morning to an empty side of the bed and a voicemail from Amira about Azariah's first dance recital, a recital he forgot to attend, he couldn't laugh anymore. He didn't even listen to the whole message. Her voice cracked halfway through. He hadn't heard her sound like that in years. It stayed with him, like a song he couldn't stop humming. He tried to distract himself, meetings, conferences, late-night gym sessions, but everything kept circling back to one bitter truth. He had no one waiting for him anymore, and it was his own fault. 2 weeks later, he found himself parked outside a small community center in Silver Lake. He wasn't even sure why he came. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was regret. Amira had mentioned once, in passing, that Azariah's dance classes were held here on Saturdays. He didn't tell her he'd come. He didn't ask permission. He just sat in his Tesla, engine off, watching the small crowd of parents filing inside with ballet bags and bright smiles. He spotted her instantly. Azariah was in a yellow tutu, her curls bouncing as she skipped beside Amira. She looked taller now, more confident. She walked like her mother, with purpose. Amira wore jeans and a soft cream sweater, no makeup, still stunning. She laughed at something Azariah said and brushed hair from her daughter's face with the kind of tenderness Lennox hadn't seen in years. He suddenly felt like an outsider, like he was watching a family that had grown without him. When the door closed behind them, Lennox exhaled, slowly, quietly. He didn't go in. He couldn't. Instead, he drove off, not back to Manhattan, but to a hotel in West Hollywood, where he sat on the edge of a king-sized bed, staring at a picture of his daughter on his phone. She had his chin. She always had. But her smile? That was all Amira. And it hurt. The following Monday, Lennox finally replied to Amira's voicemail. "Hey, I'm sorry I missed the recital," he said, voice tight. "Work's been a lot. Maybe we can reschedule something. Just the three of us." He waited days for a reply. None came. He tried again. "Would love to stop by, just for a bit. Maybe bring something for Azariah." Again, nothing. The silence wasn't passive-aggressive. It was firm, final. She had boundaries now, and Lennox, for once, couldn't cross them. In his office at Waverly Ventures, things weren't much better. Performance had slipped. Shareholders were concerned. Board members had questions. But Lennox had no answers. His heart wasn't in the business anymore. He hadn't noticed how much he leaned on Amira until she wasn't there to listen to him anymore. He remembered when she used to walk into his office with lunch, setting it down while reviewing a market report with fresh eyes. He remembered how she used to believe in his ideas before he did. Now, his office was cold. His team, unsure. Rumors began to spread that Lennox had lost his touch, that he was slipping. And the worst part? He didn't even deny it. It was a rainy Thursday when he saw her again, really saw her. She was speaking at a tech conference in Santa Monica. He hadn't planned to go, but his assistant booked him a spot months ago, and he didn't cancel in time. He walked in late. The hall was packed, and there she was on stage, standing behind a podium in a navy blue blazer and slacks, her hair in a neat bun, confidence radiating from every word. She spoke about data optimization and real-time analytics. The room hung on every word, even him. She didn't flinch when she saw him in the crowd, didn't lose her rhythm. She simply glanced over once, then kept speaking. Afterward, people swarmed her, shaking hands, praising her talk, asking about her consulting firm. Lennox stood at the back, watching the woman, who once whispered apologies into his neck, now stand in full command of a room. He waited until the crowd thinned. "Amira," he called softly. She turned. There was no hostility in her eyes, but no warmth either. "Lennox, you were great up there," he offered. She nodded. "Thank you. I've been meaning to talk to you." Her face was unreadable. About what? About us. About Azariah. About everything. She shifted her bag to the other shoulder. I'm not sure there's anything left to say. He swallowed hard. Maybe not, but I want to try. I want to be better. For her. Maybe for you too. Amira looked past him toward the exit. I spent years wanting those words, and now that you've said them, I feel... Nothing. His chest tightened. Nothing? She met his gaze. Nothing I owe you. That hit harder than any slap. She exhaled. You don't get to show up after years and expect closure in one sentence. I don't expect anything, he whispered. Good, she replied, because Azariah has a life full of love, full of presence. I made sure of that. He blinked, confused. You're seeing someone? She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. He nodded slowly. I'm happy for you, he said, even if it tasted like vinegar on his tongue. Thank you, she replied. And then, with the grace she had always carried, she walked away. Lennox didn't stop her. This time, he knew better. He sat alone on a bench outside the hall for a long time after. The rain had stopped, but everything inside him still poured. He had once been the center of her world. Now, he was just a lesson she had learned, and a warning she had outgrown. Lennox had never been good at waiting. He was a man who built an empire by making fast decisions, breaking through barriers and taking control. But now, he was a man standing in the shadows of his own past, waiting for a moment that might never come again. 2 weeks passed since the Santa Monica conference. He hadn't reached out to Amira again. Her words still rang too clearly. You don't get to show up after years and expect closure. She was right. So he stopped trying to chase closure. Instead, he decided to earn it. Not with words, with actions. He started small, checking in with her assistant to know Azariah's school events, volunteer days or recitals. He never showed up uninvited. He never pushed his way back in, but he was there. In the back row, in the parking lot, by the door, watching, quietly. He dropped off gifts without notes, left books Azariah had once mentioned on her birthday, donated anonymously to Amira's non-profit, the one she started last fall. He didn't want credit. He didn't want applause. He wanted a chance to do something right without the need to be seen. It was unfamiliar territory, but something about it grounded him. It made him human again. Back in his world, people noticed. His assistant said he seemed calmer. His business partners said his focus had sharpened. The board? They praised the new visionary clarity in his leadership. But the truth was simpler. He was no longer leading with ego. He was leading with humility, something Amira had always tried to teach him, not with lectures, but by example. Now, he was finally listening. On a windy Saturday afternoon, Lennox stood outside the fence of Azariah's school. A spring fair was happening, complete with pony rides, food trucks, and face painting. Laughter filled the air. Balloons bobbed in children's hands. Parents strolled with iced lemonades. He spotted Azariah near the bounce house, her face painted like a butterfly. She was with another child, a boy, and Amira stood close, chatting with another mother. Then a man walked up to her. Tall, broad shoulders, clean cut. Azariah called out to him, "Uncle Carter!" He leaned down and high-fived her. Then, he kissed Amira on the cheek. Lennox's stomach tightened. He didn't know why it surprised him. He had no claim on her, no right to jealousy. But watching her laugh with another man twisted something inside him. Not because of who the man was, but because of what he represented. A life that moved on, without him. Later that night, Lennox stood by his bedroom window again, looking out over the city. He hadn't spoken to Amira in over a month, hadn't seen Azariah up close in weeks, and yet he felt more connected to them than he ever had when he lived in the same house. Because now, he was finally paying attention. He was learning who his daughter was, what she liked, What made her laugh? What scared her? He watched videos Amira posted online, short clips from school functions, funny moments at home, Azariah's spelling bee win. And every night he told himself, she's happy. That's what matters. Even if he wasn't part of that happiness, even if she never called him Dad again. But fate had its own plans. One rainy afternoon, a knock sounded at his door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, he froze. Amira stood there, her umbrella dripping, her eyes tired. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. He stepped aside without a word. She walked in and stood in the center of his living room, the same space they once filled with arguments and cold silences. Now, the silence between them felt different, heavy, but not angry. She turned to him. "I need your help," she said. Lennox blinked. "With what?" "Azariah. She's been having trouble at school. Some kids found out, about you, about the past." He felt a sharp pang in his chest. "What did they say?" "They made jokes, called her names, said her mom was the girl her rich dad dumped, said she was the mistake of a CEO's rebound." Lennox clenched his fists. "She's been quiet, not sleeping well. She finally told me last night." He swallowed. "I'm so sorry." "I'm not here for apologies," Amira said. "I'm here because she's asking questions. And I don't know how to answer them alone anymore." Lennox nodded. "What do you need from me?" Amira exhaled. "Come to dinner tomorrow. Just us three. No promises, no pressure. Just show her you care." He didn't hesitate. "I'll be there." The next evening, Lennox showed up at Amira's home with takeout from their favorite Thai spot. Azariah answered the door. She stared at him, unsure. He knelt down. "Hey, butterfly, can I come in?" She hesitated, then nodded. Dinner was quiet at first, awkward, but halfway through, Azariah asked, "Why weren't you there when I was little?" The room went still. Lennox met her eyes. No excuses. No spin. "I was selfish. I thought I had more time. But that's not how love works. It's not something you schedule." She nodded slowly. "Do you love Mommy?" Lennox glanced at Amira, then back at his daughter. "I love her for giving me you." Azariah smiled. And just like that, the room breathed again. After dinner, Azariah dozed off on the couch. Lennox helped carry her to bed. When he returned to the living room, Amira handed him a glass of water. They sat in silence. "She's a good kid," Lennox said. "She deserves more than a weekend dad." He looked at her. "I know. I'm not asking for custody battles. I'm asking for consistency." He nodded. "I can do that." Amira studied him. "You've changed." "I had to." She stared into her glass. "Sometimes I wonder what we could have been if we met later. When we were both ready." He didn't answer, but she didn't need him to. Some questions aren't meant for answers. They're meant to remind you of the path you didn't take. When Lennox left that night, he kissed Azariah's forehead while she slept. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own child's life. He felt like a father, no matter how long it took to earn the title again. Lennox's days began to look different. His mornings once started with board meetings, investor calls, and back-to-back briefings. Now, he started by checking Azariah's school calendar. If she had a recital, a science project, or even just crazy hat day, he was there. Not as a CEO, as her dad. Sometimes he volunteered for pickup duty. Sometimes he showed up with her favorite cinnamon rolls. Once, he even joined her class as a mystery reader, wearing a hoodie and cap like a shy uncle. Azariah beamed through every page he read aloud. The teacher told Amira afterward, "She's been smiling more, laughing louder. Whatever's happening, it's working." Amira didn't need to ask what that meant. She knew. Lennox was showing up. And this time, not just in presence, but in purpose. Still, healing wasn't a straight line. One evening, while helping Azariah with a math worksheet, Lennox made a mistake. Simple subtraction, but he mixed it up. Azariah giggled. "You're bad at this, Daddy." He flinched. "Daddy." She said it without thinking. So natural, so real. But then she froze. Sorry. I didn't know if I could say that. Lennox smiled gently. "You can say whatever you feel, Butterfly. I'm just grateful to hear it." She nodded shyly. And from then on, she called him that more freely. Daddy. It hit him deeper than any million-dollar acquisition ever had. One Friday, Amira invited him to stay for dinner again. They weren't rebuilding their relationship romantically. Not yet. But there was a warmth between them now. A calm that had never existed before. They talked like Kyo parents, like teammates, like people who had finally put down the weapons and picked up understanding. Azariah fell asleep early, leaving them on the porch with tea in hand and silence in the air. Lennox broke it first. "I missed so much," he said. "First steps, first words, her first Christmas." "You can't get those back," Amira said softly. "But you can be here now." "I want to." She looked at him, her eyes softer than they'd been in years. "Then keep choosing it. Don't disappear when it's not convenient." "I won't." She hesitated. "I believe you." He didn't press for more, didn't ask what they were, didn't ask what came next. He was learning to be present, not controlling, to let moments speak, not force meanings onto them. Weeks passed. Then came a storm, not between them, but in the world around them. The media caught wind of Lennox's renewed involvement in Amira and Azariah's lives. A tabloid ran a photo of them at the zoo, Amira laughing, Lennox carrying Azariah on his shoulders. The headline read, "Fallen CEO finds redemption in secret family." It wasn't accurate, but it stirred attention. Reporters swarmed Amira's nonprofit the next day. Parents from Azariah's school whispered. Some were kind. Some weren't. Amira confronted him that evening. "I didn't sign up for headlines. I didn't feed them. But this is your world, Lennox. You move, and cameras follow. That's not fair to her. I'll protect her. I swear." "Then do it," she said firmly. "Shield her. Not with lawyers or press statements, with boundaries." He listened. He made calls. By Monday, the story was buried. His legal team issued a privacy request to remove photos. He pulled out of 2 upcoming press events and put Azariah's safety before his brand for the first time ever. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Later that week, Amira sent him a photo. It was Azariah's drawing from school. 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. Above it, she'd written, "Me, Mummy, and Daddy." Below, she added, "My family." Lennox stared at it for 10 minutes straight. No mergers, no headlines. No luxury mattered more than that crayon-colored page. One Saturday morning, Lennox invited them both to his home. Not the glass mansion downtown, but the lake house 2 hours outside the city. It had always been his escape, the one place untouched by his mistakes. They grilled burgers, fed ducks, played board games. At night, as Azariah slept in the guest room, Amira stepped out onto the deck, wrapped in a blanket. Lennox joined her, coffee in hand. "Thank you for coming," he said. "She's never been this quiet and happy at the same time." He smiled. "I built this house when I was 29. Thought I needed somewhere peaceful to think. Funny thing is, I never actually found peace here." She looked around. "It feels different now." "It does." She turned to him. "Do you miss us?" His eyes met hers. Every day. She didn't pull away when he took her hand. Didn't flinch when his fingers laced with hers. Didn't resist when he leaned in gently. The kiss was soft, not rushed, not desperate. It was full of apology, full of history, full of hope. When they pulled apart, she didn't say anything. Neither did he. Some truths are best left quiet, felt, not spoken. The next morning, as they drove back into the city, Azariah sang along to the radio in the back seat. Amira glanced over at Lennox. He was driving. calm, focused, present. She placed her hand on his knee, just for a second. He looked at her and smiled. Not everything was fixed, but something had been rebuilt. A bridge, a bond, a beginning. Not because time healed all wounds, but because love, when chosen again and again, could do what time alone never could. Azariah was 5 now. Her curls had grown thicker, her voice bolder, and her questions sharper. She looked more and more like Lennox every day, but she laughed like Amira's father and danced like joy itself. Their townhouse in Silver Lake was now filled with framed drawings, squeaky toys, and bookshelves of bedtime stories. Amira's business, A&J Data Insights, had grown into a full-scale operation. She led a small team of consultants, managed clients across 3 states, and was regularly invited to speak at conferences. Her mornings began with almond milk lattes and client calls, and her nights ended with dinosaur pajamas and soft lullabies. Malik was part of that rhythm now. Never in the way, always in step. He'd never tried to replace Lennox. He just showed up. When Azariah needed a puzzle partner, when Amira needed someone to vent to, or when the world felt too heavy. His patience ran deep, his affection quiet but steady, and that's what made his presence powerful. But Lennox never truly disappeared. He sent child support, though always late. He asked for photos, but rarely followed through with visits. Once every couple months, he'd pop up with a gift. Some expensive toy Azariah had never asked for, hoping it would bridge the gap he'd never cared to cross. She didn't call him Daddy. She just called him Lennox. One day, Malik found Azariah on the balcony, hugging a teddy bear Lennox had sent. "Do you think Lennox loves me?" she asked, not looking up. Malik knelt beside her. "I think Lennox is still learning how to love." She blinked. "Do you think he'll learn fast, before I get too big?" Malik didn't answer right away. He wrapped an arm around her and kissed her forehead. "No matter what happens with Lennox, you're already more loved than most little girls in the world." Amira watched from inside, her chest tightening. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't bitterness. It was grief. Grief for the version of Lennox that had never arrived. The reckoning came when Amira was invited to speak on a panel hosted by a major tech publication. The venue was at a luxury hotel in downtown LA, the same one Lennox had hosted a product launch party at years before. The memory of that night lingered. That night, she'd worn a gold dress. She had been pregnant. Lennox had introduced her to everyone as his lovely wife. She had smiled through contractions she didn't yet know were Braxton Hicks. Hours later, he had left with another woman, and Amira had gone home alone. She stood backstage now, wearing a midnight blue pantsuit, heels planted, notes in hand. Azariah was in the front row beside Malik, her hair in 2 neat puffs, clapping every time someone came on stage. Halfway through the panel, someone tapped Amira's shoulder. "Mr. Waverly is here." She turned. Lennox, sharp suit, watch glinting under the hallway lights, but his eyes weren't sharp anymore. There was something hollow in his smile. "Didn't want to miss it," he said. "I didn't invite you," she replied, steady. "I know. But she's my daughter too." Amira didn't argue. She turned away. "Then sit and listen." Lennox slipped into the crowd as Amira took the stage. Her voice was clear, confident, purposeful. She spoke about women in tech, the barriers still present, and the resilience required to break them. She told stories, not of herself, but of the hundreds of women she'd mentored and hired. She ended with a pause, then a truth. Sometimes it's not about who showed up in your life, it's about who stayed. The room erupted in applause. Later, in the reception hall, Lennox approached her again. "You've come a long way." Amira nodded. "Yes. Without your shortcuts." He laughed weakly. "I know I messed up. More than once. I lost you. I lost what we could have been." "You lost what you never valued," she corrected. "I didn't leave. I rebuilt. There's a difference." He glanced toward Malik, who was now carrying Azariah on his shoulders as she giggled. "She seems happy," Lennox said softly. "She is, Because she's surrounded by truth, not performances. He took a breath. I'm trying to be better. I just don't know where to start. Amira's tone was calm. Start by being consistent. Send cards. Show up. Don't just gift. Connect. Be honest. And don't expect a standing ovation for doing the bare minimum. He nodded, embarrassed. I'm not bitter, Lennox, she added. But I won't let you pretend to be a hero in a story you barely contributed to. Malik joined her at that moment, Azariah now reaching for Amira. Mommy, she whispered. Can we go home? Amira kissed her cheek. Yes, love. Lennox stood there, watching the three of them walk out. A family not defined by blood, but by choice. Outside, the night air was crisp. You okay? Malik asked. I'm more than okay, Amira said. I'm free. She hadn't planned to become a single mother. She hadn't imagined running a business while healing from betrayal. But life had written its own script. And she, Amira Jennings, had edited every line to reflect strength, growth, and purpose. As Malik opened the car door, Azariah turned one last time. Lennox is sad, she said. Amira nodded. Sometimes people get sad when they realize what they gave away. She strapped her daughter in, took her seat beside Malik, and watched the lights of downtown blur into the background. She had no revenge to post, no pain to perform. Her life was the answer. Her peace, the proof, and somewhere deep inside, she knew the next chapter would be written in love, not loss. Azariah's birthday fell on a Saturday, 3 weeks after Amira and Malik's engagement. The sun was high, the skies clear, and Silver Lake buzzed with a kind of joy that mirrored the celebration unfolding in Amira's backyard. Colorful streamers danced from the trees. A bounce house was set up on the grass. Tables were lined with finger foods, cake pops, and party favors wrapped in butterfly-themed bags. Azariah's idea. Laughter rang from every corner, the kind that echoed freedom, healing, and love. Malik was in charge of the grill, tongs in one hand, a cartoon apron over his t-shirt. He wore a party hat slightly tilted, and every now and then, Azariah would run to him, tugging on his shorts, asking if the hot dogs were ready yet. Amira watched from the porch, a glass of sparkling water in hand, heart full. She'd planned the party with help from her closest friends. Every detail reflected how far they had come. The little girl who'd entered the world in silence was now surrounded by laughter. The woman who once labored in loneliness now stood in the center of a community that loved her. Mummy, Azariah squealed, running up the porch steps. Uncle Isaiah's here. Amira's eyes widened. Isaiah? Yep. He brought his girlfriend too. Amira looked toward the driveway and sure enough, Isaiah, her cousin, who had stayed in New York after college, was stepping out of a rental car, waving. She smiled and went to greet him, wrapping him in a tight hug. I had to come, he said. Couldn't miss my little cousin's big day. Thank you, Amira whispered. Isaiah glanced around, then nodded toward Malik at the grill. That the guy? That's the guy. He looks like he's not going anywhere. He's not. Later that day, as cake was served and kids ran wild with balloons, Lennox showed up. He hadn't RSVP'd. He stood at the edge of the yard in a dark blazer, clearly overdressed, holding a gift bag. Amira saw him and immediately felt a ripple of tension in her chest. But she didn't panic. She walked over calmly, Malik stepping closer in quiet support. I heard it was her birthday, Lennox said. Figured I'd stop by. You figured, Amira repeated. I'm not trying to start anything. I just wanted to give her something. Amira looked at the bag. A doll, expensive, limited edition, still in its wrapping. She's with her friends, Amira said. You can leave it with me. Lennox hesitated. Can I say hi? Malik stepped forward slightly but said nothing. Amira nodded once. Just hi. Lennox approached the picnic table where Azariah was laughing with her friends over melted cupcakes. She looked up, surprised. Daddy? Hey, sweet pea, he said softly. Happy birthday. Thanks. He didn't linger, just smiled, handed her the bag, then turned and walked away. Back at the porch, Amira watched him go. "You okay?" Malik asked, brushing her hand. "I'm good," she replied. "I'm finally good." That night, after the guests had gone and Azariah was tucked into bed surrounded by new toys, Amira sat on the couch with Malik. They didn't talk about Lennox. They didn't need to. Instead, Malik pulled out a small box. "Wasn't sure when the right time would be," he said, "but I know what I want." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band. "No flash," he said, "just permanence." Amira blinked back tears. Yes, he didn't even ask again. He just kissed her hand and placed the ring on her finger. In that quiet moment, she realized something. Love didn't need an audience. It just needed truth. And she had finally found hers. The air inside Amira's new home carried a stillness she had come to cherish, a kind of earned peace. The walls bore no memories of tears or betrayal, only quiet laughter, freshly painted dreams, and the occasional thump of Azariah dancing in socks on the hardwood floors. That night, Amira stood in the hallway, watching Malik and Azariah curled up on the couch. A bedtime story lay open on his chest, Azariah already drifting off, her hand resting over his heart. Malik looked up, met her eyes and whispered, "She's got your fire." Amira smiled. "She keeps me going." Later, when Azariah was tucked into bed, Malik returned to the living room. Amira handed him a cup of chamomile, their new nighttime ritual. "You know," Malik said, gently swirling the cup in his hands, "I used to think love had to be dramatic, full of big gestures and chaos. But this quiet thing we have, it's the most real thing I've known." Amira leaned into the armrest, her expression soft. "You ever fear it could fall apart?" "All the time," he admitted. "But I don't let that stop me from showing up." They didn't need to say more. Weeks turned into months. Azariah started preschool. Amira's consultancy landed a deal with a major healthcare startup. Malik's nonprofit expanded to 3 new cities. They built their days like brickwork, intentional, steady, solid. One Saturday morning, while prepping pancakes, Amira's phone buzzed. Lennox. She let it ring once, twice, then answered. "Amira," his voice came through, unfamiliar in tone. "I know you don't owe me your time, but I'd like to see Azariah." She paused, heart steady. "You're not consistent, Lennox. She doesn't need confusion." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm working on it. I've been in therapy, trying to fix whatever I broke." She didn't offer comfort. That was no longer her job. If you want to be in her life, it starts with effort, not apologies. "Can I start with a visit? Supervised, if needed." Amira hesitated. Azariah had asked once about her father. She was growing, curious. "Next Saturday. My place. You bring a puzzle and snacks." Lennox exhaled, surprised. "Thank you." She ended the call, not out of anger, but clarity. Saturday arrived. Azariah wore a yellow jumper and matching bows. She sat at the dining table while Malik adjusted the camera setup in the corner, just in case. Lennox arrived on time, carrying a puzzle and a stuffed giraffe. He looked thinner, not worn, but humbled. Azariah approached cautiously. "Hi," he said, crouching to her eye level. "I'm your dad. I brought you this." She took the giraffe, unsure. Amira stayed nearby, arms crossed. She watched him try, helping Azariah fit puzzle pieces, asking questions, laughing nervously. He wasn't a natural, but he was trying. When the hour ended, Azariah hugged him, small arms around his neck. "Can you come again next Saturday?" she asked. He looked to Amira. She nodded once. Same time, same effort. Later that night, after Azariah fell asleep, Malik found Amira on the back porch. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said. "Just thinking." "He surprised you?" "A little," she admitted. "But I'm not opening the door. Not for him, just for her." Malik pulled her into his side. That's what makes you her anchor. She looked up. And you? I'm just the guy who got lucky enough to love the both of you. She kissed him slowly, then rested her head on his shoulder. No chaos, no noise, just earned peace. 2 years later, Amira stood in front of a packed auditorium. She was being honored for launching a mentorship program for single mothers in tech. Her voice was calm, clear. I was once that woman who gave birth alone, who started over with a baby on one hip and a laptop on the other, who thought love had to come with pain. She scanned the room. Malik was front row, Azariah clapping beside him, ribbons in her hair. But I learned something, Amira continued. You don't have to chase love. The right love stays. It grows beside you. It cheers you on. It doesn't ask you to shrink. The audience rose to their feet. Tears glistened in Malik's eyes. Azariah beamed, and Amira, once the woman left behind in a hospital bed, stood tall, whole, and loved. Not because she begged, but because she rebuilt, on her own terms, and this time, she was never alone again. If Amira's journey moved you, don't scroll away without sharing your thoughts below. Would you have forgiven Lennox, or walked away forever? Your comments matter, and we'd love to hear your voice. If stories like this inspire you, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales of strength, heartbreak, and healing. And hey, someone you know might need this message. Share it with them. You never know who's listening. We appreciate your time. Until next time, this is Mr. Charles Stories, where real emotions meet unforgettable endings. Stay strong. Stay true. See you in the next story.